Is Inter Milan, who book a place in this year's final to face, obviously, either PSG or Arsenal. Barcelona are out. For more on this, Jurgen Klinsmann joins us. Jurgen, this is why we love the sport, isn't it?
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, we're all exhausted, I guess, like everyone in front of the TV. Imagining the people in the stadium. It's been two semi-finals. It's two exceptional semi-finals that we witnessed. I mean, with two teams that really were going or driving each other on the edge. And what we witnessed tonight was just fantastic for every football fan to watch that. I mean, they really wrote a piece of history tonight.
Yeah, it really was something special.
Well, it is, because we witnessed one team on a life support machine.
Yes.
In the second half, Inter Milan. I don't think I've seen two strikers look as tired as that. Lautaro Martinez and Marcus Thuram, I don't think I've seen two front men who've had injuries look as tired as that. Martinez goes off. Where the hell Thuram got his second win, his third win, his fourth win from? Because at the end, he's still throwing himself about. I've got to give these teams, these players, a lot of credit, but you live by the sword, you die by the sword. And Barcelona died by it tonight. They're defending. I mean, they had 3-2. I get it. You've got players missing, but I'm not talking about individual defending. I'm talking about defending as a unit, as a team. And particularly in the first half, it got picked apart, that high line, right? We know that. We're always going on about it. And it kind of negated a little bit in the second half. I don't think because Barcelona changed. I think because they then started dominating the game and Inter didn't have the legs to run in behind. However, 3-2, we all sat and watched this. 3-2, they've won it. Within 60 seconds of the kickoff, they are running up to play an offside. Right? It doesn't come to anything, but I think encapsulated their mindset. They are squeezing to the halfway line when there's, minutes, seconds left to see the game out, and they're still trying to play this offside. When the goal comes, they're still trying to squeeze. They get caught. Acerbi's in an offside position because they're so high, and when the ball comes in, obviously, second phase, he's onside. And that, in the end, is something we've talked about all season, was in the biggest moment of the biggest occasions, was this kind of kamikaze defending going to cost them? And I think we got our answer tonight.
Before we get to the intricacies of where this game was won and indeed lost, Ali, just overall, you could just see at the end of the game, everybody left everything out there on the pitch.
And I think the game demanded that from everybody. You couldn't have passengers out there. You had to have everything from everybody. There are so many players that stood out tonight. And rarely in a semi-final of a Champions League do you have so many outstanding performances from both teams. Usually you'll have a team that dominate and you can say, well, look at this guy, look at that guy, look at this guy. Craig was mentioning Barella in the highlight. What about Pedri tonight? How good was he? And you think about Thuram, for example. You thought, yes, he was dead, but he ends up making the difference-making play. Mm-hmm. The game-changing play against a player in Ronald Araujo who was supposed to be fresh because he had just come off the bench, and he was Thuram, the one that is giving him a little shoulder dip, a little something, and takes him to the end line. Jan Sommer, outstanding as he might have been, he comes out, actually misses the ball, and the ball falls to Robert Lewandowski, the one guy that you would want if you're Barcelona to actually put the ball into the back of the net. There's so much to digest and to analyze in this game and to break down, and you just kind of peel a layer, and once you peel a layer, you're going to find another one. I think Barcelona should be very thankful, for many reasons, that I'm not managing this team. Because if I were, Gerard Martin and Eric Garcia would not have been on the field in the second half. And yet they're the ones that combine in order to get this team back onto the game. And Gerard Martin then gets his head up and finds the service for Dani Olmo for the game-tying goal. I don't know what direction to go. If you're Barcelona, you're devastated. If you're Inter, obviously, you're incredibly joyous about this. All of us won because of the semifinal. And usually, we don't get in semifinals of Champions League, where you watch two semifinals like this and you go, give me more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The stats that we put up, if you haven't watched the game and you look at the stats, they're heavily weighted for Barcelona. But that's not the story, because we always knew, you could probably have pinned those stats up pretty much before the game. It was about the big moments, as it always was going to be, because they were always going to dominate. They were always going to create chances. Lamine Yamal was always going to be a handful, although I have to say, Inter played him much better in the first 45 minutes. They were much more aggressive with him. When DiMarco went off, he started to have a field day. I mean, he was already starting beforehand. But it's about the big moments when Danny Olmo's got his back to play, as Ali said, and DiMarco sees that. And he goes in and he shuts him down for the first goal. It's about these big moments. It's about recognising these big moments, which I think in the end, you have to say Inter did just a little bit better, recognising the big moments and taking their chances. Yeah, there was some brilliant stuff from Barcelona, particularly Lamine Yamal as the game went on, as the second half went on, and Jan Sommer was tremendous, but Inter recognised those big moments. And to be out on their feet the way they were and come back, and the changes were key for Inzaghi. He had to bring on Frattesi, he had to bring on Zielinski, Tirami, because the others were out on their feet, but they recognised these big moments, and I suppose maybe you could put some of that down to the inexperience of the Barca side. That they just continue to, and this is what sometimes as a player, I think sometimes you take it out of the hands of your manager. When it's so late in the game and you've played the same way all season, I think when experienced players are on the field, they say, listen, I know we play the offside trap and I know to do this, but there's a minute and a half left or whatever there is. You back there, we keep solidity in the midfield, we drop a little bit deeper, we don't leave any space in behind, and that's the way we're going to defend it. And that's what experienced players, I think, would do, or more experienced players. And I think what we saw was a group of players who have had an instruction from the manager all season, and it's worked very well, but we're still trying to do the same thing at the most important moment of the game, when they really should have been just switching on and saying, right, OK, lads, drop off. Let's try and see this one out.
And it wasn't just about that specific moment that you're talking about, Craig. That was very noticeable because all of us that are watching the game are like, what are they doing? That, yes, not even 60 minutes after they score the goal, they're squeezing so high. In the goal itself that they give up late, why are you 3v3 to begin with? How is that possible? Look, you want to play your high line, so be it. But get numbers in the high line. Get numbers around the attacking players from Inter. When that sequence started, it started at 3v3 in the back for Barcelona. How does that happen this late in a match? That's the part that, look, I cannot understand the highlight to begin with late, but the fact that you don't have extra numbers to cover for something that could happen, for a deflection, for a little flick on, something that may happen that may go against you, that you're there to cover because you have the extra numbers. And that was not the case for Barcelona that late in the match. You contrast that to Inter. Late, De Vrij, ball coming in, and he's dying to win the ball. And they got numbers behind the ball. And while they did not defend all that great over the course of the two legs, they gave up 6 goals. We must remind ourselves. But in those last seconds, they were dying to clear the ball. They were doing whatever was necessary. Inzaghi was clearing the ball. San Siro was clearing the ball. Pepe Bergomi was clearing the ball. Everybody, Zanetti was clearing the ball from the stands. That mindset Barcelona does not have in order to finish games, when all you need to do is grind, clear it, and then you go back to Barcelona having won this, and they did not.
Experience, Jurgen, was that a big factor tonight?
Yeah, I think so. I think experience plays a role in this result, because obviously it's the small little pieces that decide such a wonderful game like tonight, and experience helps that dramatically. I mean, you need to have your players be ready to go the extra mile, to be ready to suffer, to be ready to make that decisive play in the very last second of the game, and to give your teammates always the feeling we're not giving up. I mean, it was a game of different half times. I think Inter played well the first half, then they had the lead, and then they gave the second half almost completely to Barcelona, and they controlled it. They played a fantastic game, scored beautiful goals, and then there was Jan Sommer in there for Inter that kept them. They kept them. I mean, he kept them in the game, and then still they had to believe, after their substitutions, Inter, that they might have still a chance to equalize the game, and that they did that in the last second. With a tremendous amount of willingness and desire to do it, and then to give the extra goal then in extra time, and there plays a role then experience. It plays a role that you have some some guys on the field that really just want to push it through. They hammer it through. The entire stadium was going absolutely bananas, and I think that's why they maybe deserve it. And there's the other side of a fantastic Barcelona side then risks too much, as Craig said, and Alice said rightfully. They risk in the end of the game. They risk a little bit too much, where you just want to kick the ball in the stand. Just kick it out. It's just a minute to go. And Inter smells that. They go for it and they push it. And I mean, it could have gone either way. I mean, obviously, there's no doubt about it. But those little pieces, they add up over the time of 120 minutes, and they added up. And I think that's why maybe Inter is now in the final. That's why Inter, dreams of playing that final in a couple of weeks from now in Munich. I mean, you can go every play you can go through it now when you analyze that game, and you will go nuts even if you analyze that game, saying, how could that end this way and how could it go on this way? But I think, as Ali said, I mean, Jan Sommer played a huge role in that, and you never would talk like that over a goalkeeper that actually conceded 6 goals in 2 games now in the semi-final. But for me, he was really man of the match, especially the last one that he saved against Lamine Yamal, because that would have gone in, that curl shot, and would have finished the deal for Barcelona. But I just think emotionally it was for both sides, it was going to the extreme. They will be exhausted for 2-3 days, both teams. I don't know how you want to sleep if you're a player like that after this game. And you got to give them both huge compliments. And still, I think because of that extra piece, as Craig said, of experience, I think Inter deserves to go to the final.
They were just more clinical, weren't they? I mean, we talked about Jan Sommer making all these saves, which he did. Tell me, apart from the 4 goals,
Yeah.
So Chesney, I'm trying to think about saves that he made. He didn't really have to, but the key moments Inter were clinical. It's a difficult game really to think about in terms of, when we covered the first game, we said, where do we start? And it's almost like the same again. Where do you start with this? Where do you start with this game? It's hard to say, pinpoint players and say, he had a bad game, because they gave so much.
Yes.
They gave so much, but it was patently obvious early on that it was just, and we talked about it in the show the last couple of days, they'll have looked at how many times they got in behind in Barcelona in the Montjuic, and they're going to be better at it this time. And I think you could say probably early on they were. And it was way too easy to get in behind. For Inter at times. I mean, again, better balls and better decision, better run, better delivery on the ball. And they were going to get in time and time again. You're thinking, this is just crazy. And then the tiredness came out of nowhere. Maybe we're looking at age.
Right.
For Inter.
Yeah.
But it was like a cliff.
Explain that to me. You guys must have played in these sort of situations where you just feel you've got nothing left in your legs, which so many of those Inter players looked like they hadn't. And I know there were substitutions, but there were still players out there at the end that played 120 minutes. But at the 70-minute mark, you thought, goodness me, they're not going to make it. Where does that come from?
Just desire. And the fact that sometimes you just think, right, I got no choice, I got to go again.
Right.
And they say, well, certainly in England, in the UK, we say get your second wind.
Yes.
Don't know how much of that is true and how much is not, but it looked like some of these players got their second wind.
You basically got no choice.
You got no choice. You got to roll your sleeves up. You got to dig in. And sometimes when you create a couple of chances, or you have a good effort, or your team squeezes another 10, 15, 20 yards up the field, you get a bit of confidence again. When you're getting battered, it's a bit like a boxer. When you're in the corner and you're getting battered, right, and you can't get out of that corner, it's difficult to get the energy to get out of the corner. But all of a sudden, if you land a punch, all of a sudden you think you're back in it. Yeah. And that's how it was with Inter. They just were looking for small things to get themselves back in the game, get themselves 20, 30 yards higher up the field, and really take the pressure off, because it was, as Jurgen said, it was Barcelona's half by a stretch in the second half. But they found the energy, and once it goes to extra time, both sides are tired. Changes have been made. Yeah. The epitome of it to me was Marcus Thuram. He had nothing left in the tank. it seemed, and yet he was the one, which I don't know why Inter didn't do this in regular time. And around 70 minutes, they hadn't had a kick of the ball for 10 or 15 minutes. And they're still trying to roll the ball out to the centre-halves and the wing-backs under a Barcelona press, and they can't keep it because they're so tired. And yet, in the end, their best outlet was Jan Sommer punting it forward and Thuram and his teammates scrapping for it. So I really don't know why they didn't do that more often during the second half. That was their best avenue for getting at this Barcelona team. They realised it late because they were so tired. And then the physicality of Thuram up front was a handful for Kubasi and Martinez, and then Araujo. And the Martinez was a strange one. If he was injured, fine.
Yeah. He was on a yellow card. Does that weigh into that decision?
He's your preferred centre-half alongside Pau Kubasi. He stated that before the game. He said, I don't want to split this partnership up. It is a risk when you're on a yellow card, but lots of defenders get on yellow cards, and it is such a big game. So unless there was an injury, Hansi Flick, I think, was overly worried about him picking up a second yellow, because that partnership has been the best partnership for Barca all season.
And it so happens that it's Ronald Araujo that gets exposed.
Yeah, he didn't have a good game coming on.
And so then you have to ask yourself the question, how come Hansi Flick is choosing to play Eddie Garcia as right back instead of Ronald Araujo as at right back, which he has played in the past and he did for Xavi many a times? Well, there is something that Hansi Flick knows that we don't know, that we don't see every day. And obviously, when you're looking at Ronald Araujo, he was kind of lumbering. As tired as Marcos Thuram was, he's running circles around him. On the point of Marcos Thuram, you just mentioned something there. You have no choice. I think this is what happened with Marcos Thuram. He was dragging his legs, and he looked like he was about to pull a hamstring or a groin or something. There was no life in those legs. And Lautaro Martinez was also dragging. And it's almost as if, like, Marcos Thuram sees as to who's about to come on, Taremi. He's like, well, I guess that's me. I'm out. And it's Lautaro that is going off. And now you're the striker and you're going, well, Taremi has come on. There's no other option. I have to do the job. There are no more excuses. Whatever pain I'm feeling right now, I have to do the job, which was different than Çalhanoğlu and Mkhitaryan, who had ran themselves ragged. Mm-hmm. They could not chase Pedri any longer. They couldn't do it anymore. And that's when the changes of Inzaghi made a difference in giving some life.
Yeah.
Not necessarily more quality, but more life to that midfield so that they could at least advance 10 more yards and give themselves a little bit more of a chance to getting forward. But having said all that, Barcelona were still up 3-2 with 2 minutes to go.
How much credit should Inzaghi get for this result, Jurgen?
Oh, he should get huge credit. I mean, absolutely deserves it. And now, obviously, this is a dream for Inter come true, being back in the Champions League final. But I want to get back to the topic of tiredness. Tiredness for players in a game like this. You go through it several times. You're going to be exhausted after 50, 60, 70 minutes, but you keep going. The energy that is in that stadium, or in general, at that level, playing those games, the energy of the fans, the stadium, the meaningless of the game gives you so much second wins. You constantly come back. It's not a problem. You might get even cramps in between, and you shake it off and you go again and then again. And this is what you want to go through, because these games, you live for these type of games. You don't want to get off substituted in a game like that. So when Marcus Thuram saw that it's Lautaro that gets off for Taremi, I mean, it gives you the biggest smile in that moment. It says, you know what, I'm looking tired. Maybe I have my moments where I cannot sprint anymore. But I do something to this game. Maybe that comes across and I head it in. Maybe as he did, then obviously he was part of the last goal, then setting it up. And you live for these seconds that you can make a difference, even if your legs are tired. You're breathing hard, but the energy of 80,000 at San Siro will keep you going. You go. There's no problem at all. So nowadays we have big discussions, with data-driven people saying, this player should be substituted at minute 70 because he's clearly tired. We see it. He cannot make sprints anymore. He cannot do this anymore. Exceptional players such as Lautaro or Lewandowski or whatever the names are, they find always a way to get back into the game, even if they're already dead, if their legs are heavy. You never sub them out because you want them maybe make the decisive play in the 92nd minute or 95th minute or in extra time, or, and that was the discussion a little bit, keep them on the field for penalty shootout. So when he subbed out Lautaro, I thought to myself, or he's injured or he's really cannot run anymore because I want to have him in my penalty shootout. Or even Mkhitaryan and Çalhanoğlu, especially Çalhanoğlu, the penalty taker. I was worried. In that moment, I was worried for Inter. I said, who's going to take the 5 penalties now if you're going to go down the road to the penalty shootout, which could have easily happened. But your leaders, your people that are capable to deal with tiredness, they can deal with the pressure and all that stuff. You want to keep them on the field until the very last moment, because the moment will come, as it was almost the moment, as Ale said, for Lewandowski. So if someone didn't get this tiny little touch on this cross, probably it's in. And then we all talk about Robert Lewandowski today, but it was not his moment, obviously, and that's how it goes. And at the end of the day, so at the end of the day, Inzaghi did everything right, everything perfect. He's going to be a hero for right now in Milano. There's no doubt about it, and they're going to dream now big about the final in a couple of weeks from now.
I'd like to have seen Lautaro Martinez, Jurgen, after 120 minutes. I mean,
absolutely.
He was toiling, wasn't he?
Yes.
And the reason that Thuram stays on, because he has the physicality and a little bit of the pace as well. But I think we've always felt that this Inter side, we're going to, not necessarily, we can choose who wins and who loses in predictions, but I think we always felt that we're going to be a real thorn in Basa's side, win or lose, and they were. I mean, they didn't defend particularly well themselves at the time. You think about a couple of cross balls and the 3 big centre-halves they have. Yep. They lost a couple of headers in both games, which is unusual, but they were always going to be a thorn in Basa's side because they're a better version of Atleti. They've got the ugly physicality, bunch of players 6'3", 6'4", they're big and quick, but they've got good experienced players in midfield like Çalhanoğlu and Barella. Mkhitaryan struggled in the second half, and then they've got physicality and goal scorers up front in Lautaro Martinez. If you think about Martinez's goal in the Allianz that time against Bayern, I mean, it was the outside of the boot. I mean, it's just incredible skill set. And yeah, they haven't got the aesthetics of Barcelona. Few do. But they have a balance about their side and a grit. And I think, on the other side of it, Inzaghi's been in there a good few years now. It's just Hansi Flick's first year. He's had to deal with a lot, and he's done a brilliant job. But if there were ever going to be a fault in this Hansi Flick side, and they're really not his signings, really, was the defence. But he himself has said, I'm prepared to take the risk to have the entertainment. Unfortunately, at 89, 90, 91 minutes of a semi-final of a Champions League, sometimes you've got to throw the baby out with the bathwater and just say, right, that's it, shutting up shop, see what you've got, like Inter did. Barca don't quite have that in their makeup, and arguably that's why they're not going to the final.
Jurgen, what's Hansi Flick's biggest regret going to bed tonight?
Well, a regret. I mean, it's obviously it's the result. You're so close, and then you're not going through to the final, and you go through it now as a manager, and you think, okay, I could have done this or could have done that. I mean, obviously, some of his couple of saves, kept Inter in the game in the second half. Now, if Eric Garcia there scores his second one that he had there, when Sommer incredibly kind of saved it, you thought the ball is already in. Ale said, the bottom left was wide open. Yeah, if he puts it down there, game over. I don't think he has regrets, Hansi Flick. I think he will admit that I should have maybe done this or this in kind of little incidences. But he knows, and he's very experienced in that way because he's a builder. Hansi Flick is one that loves young players and loves to make them grow. And that's what he did already this year at Barcelona. He made a lot of youngsters grow into this new Barcelona side. And what he wants to do now over the next 2-3 years is make them mature even more and then go for this big trophy, go for the Champions League trophy. Obviously, they go every year for the La Liga title. But he understands that the future belongs to his group. The future belongs to this young Barcelona team. And that's why probably he thinks, maybe it's not that bad, to go out in such a dramatic way today against Inter Milan, who has more experience, who has older leaders in the team, and they were brutally determined to go somehow through this semi-final. So I think, Hansi Flick will get lots of compliments in Spain for what he's done so far. I mean, obviously, the expectations at Barcelona is as always, like the biggest clubs in the world. They want to win this Champions League title, but they played outstanding. They were pure entertainment to everyone. So yeah, I mean, he will probably have 2 or 3 beers to get over it tonight, and then he moves on.
If I can go back to something that Jürgen said earlier, and he mentioned data analysis, and our game has become very data driven. But there's no data analysis that can account for toughness,
right,
for experience, for know-how. And this is something that Inter has in bundles. In bundles. It is actually what they have more than just about every other team that is left in this competition. They have scars as well from this competition. They know what the semifinal feels like. They know what's necessary to advance. And while it could have gone either way, and had Jan Sommer not made a save here and there, what you cannot question from Inter is toughness, grind, and enjoying, to Craig's point, much like Atletico Madrid, enjoying grinding, enjoying the moment of this is going to get down and dirty, and this is where we feel most comfortable. No data analysis is going to give you that information. No data analysis is going to give you the look in the eye of Acerbi when he's making a run to go and finish the goal in the manner in which he did, and the excitement that he felt in the moment and what that meant to him. Or Bastoni making challenges late in the match. That's where you throw the data out the window. You say, give me men that are going to grind, are going to be tough, and are going to see their way through games like this.
I think regret for Hansi Flick. I think disappointment in a sense that I don't think necessarily it was the Lewandowski injury that was the issue, because Ferran Torres did a decent job and they scored 6 goals. I think the disappointment for him will be when he lost both his fullbacks. Yeah. Koundé and Balde before, and then Koundé. When he lost both his fullbacks, that was more of a problem for him than losing Lewandowski. As good as Lewandowski is, they've still scored 6 goals. They've created a bunch. Summers had to play brilliantly. But, Balde's experience and Koundé's had a great season. As soon as he loses them, he's now thinking about playing players out of position. He's thinking about moving Martinez, which he did for a league game. He didn't want to do it tonight. And all of a sudden, he's having to shuffle the pack in that department where they're not particularly strong. And it's not an excuse, but I think he'll just be disappointed that at a key moment of the season, he's lost both his most experienced and arguably 2 of the best fullbacks that play the game in European football. And that ultimately was one of the big reasons that they're out of this competition.
Of course, the game's coming thick and fast, Jürgen, for Barcelona. Next up is the little matter of El Clasico on Sunday against Real Madrid, as you're looking to go one step closer to winning the title. How do you handle your players if you're Hansi Flick between now and then?
Well, I mean, obviously they go out of the Champions League with their heads high. I mean, they played tremendously for themselves, for their club, and they can be proud of what they did. And still they are disappointed. Still they are a little bit down tonight. But that's the beauty of the game, that you go always into the next match, and if your next match is Real Madrid, nothing better than that for the Barcelona team. No, he will keep it very light. I mean, they don't need to train any type of hard stuff there. They know how to play Real. They're going to look forward to it, and now they want to win the title there in Spain. I think they're looking forward to what's coming up next in the next season. Then I think there's so much on the plate for them. It's such a young team that will grow and will mature and has so much joy ahead of themselves. What we've seen from them individually has been outstanding. I think Greg is absolutely right. When you lose your fullbacks, so late in the season, then for these really big matches, and even Lewandowski then for a second, then it's very, very difficult to balance that out. And that's why you kind of depend on these individual pieces turning your way towards the end of the season. You know, in the beginning of the season, we talked a lot about the problems of Lautaro Martinez and some players, and they were all doubtful. We were all not happy with some of them performing. But you want them to be in their best phase towards the end of the season. You want your top players, the difference makers, coming up and just showing their qualities towards March, April, May. You know, and that's what probably happened in a better way for Inter. You know, Lautaro came back and started to score again. Thuram had then his little drop, and he came back then right on time. And you had defenders that, you know, you could kind of rely on, and you could also have double positions like you had with Di Marco on the left, and you can throw in, you know, Augusto then, and you could change players around, which maybe in that certain position Barcelona was not capable anymore to change things around. But still, I think, you know, it's been a tremendous positive season for Hansi Flick, his first year with Barcelona.
If Real Madrid hadn't been as bad as they have been this season, I would be really, really concerned about Barcelona going into El Clásico. And the reason it's not so much Real Madrid, as I just mentioned, it's far more about the minutes that Barcelona have accumulated over the last couple of weeks that have been taxing minutes, heavy minutes, Copa del Rey
competitive
final.
minutes.
Yeah, competitive minutes. Stressful. Stressful physically, stressful mentally. We're talking about Copa del Rey final, 120 minutes. The 3-3 match in Barcelona, stressful. This match, stressful. Another 120 minutes. There was some stress over the weekend as well to try to come back and beat Valladolid. There's been a lot of stressful minutes physically and mentally that at some point, it's going to show up on the field. However, when you're playing Real Madrid, you have a chance.
They'll not be doing much training between now and the Clásico.
No.
Really, it'll just be about rest. And interestingly enough, to that point, do you remember in the Arsenal game with Real Madrid, where they ran, was it 12 kilometres less than Arsenal? So roughly a kilometre a man. Second leg was similar. We've seen cases this season where Ancelotti's been having a pop at Vinicius and others about their work rate. There is no excuse at the weekend. Real Madrid might lose. Barcelona will possibly outplay them. There is no excuse for Real Madrid at the weekend to be outworked. Outworked by a Barcelona team that were out on their feet tonight. They gave every ounce of blood. So whatever happens in a football parlance at the weekend happens on Sunday. But there is no excuse for Ancelotti's side to be outworked and outfought by this Barca team who've been through all these games. And just a little word on Barca because they're out of this competition. We talk about them as a young, learning, inexperienced side. To an extent, that's what they are. Although some of these youngsters have got a lot of experience. I've got to give them a lot of credit for the guts that they have. They were 2-0 down in both legs. They never, ever panicked. They never, ever let their chins hit the floor. 2-0 down in both legs. You could have mistaken some of these youngsters for mailing it in. And both times they picked themselves up from those 2-0 deficits, home and away. They brushed themselves down and they went on to not only get themselves back in the game, but get themselves back in a great position, only to throw it away. And that's a sign of a side and a squad that believes in the manager and believes in themselves. The fact they did not pack it in where Inter both times took that lead. So in terms of going out the competition, gutted would be the word in that dressing room. Absolutely gutted. But I think Hansi Flick can be proud of the way this team went about their business. They were just undone by big moments in this big occasion.
And in case you didn't know, Lamine Yamal's still special.
Yeah, he's not bad, is he? And
We haven't really mentioned him.
We'll, of course,
still
see him in action again this weekend. Barcelona against Real Madrid live on ESPN and ESPN+. Our coverage starts on Sunday at 9 a.m. Eastern. There is one more semi-final.
All right, good luck.
PSG taking on Arsenal. PSG 1-0 up going into that second leg against Arteta's side. Let's hear from both coaches.
We are here to make history. We have a big opportunity tomorrow. We bring a result that gives us so much clarity about what we have to do. a lot of learnings from the first leg as well, and how small the margins are between the two teams. The result, in my opinion, should have been very different to that one. So tomorrow, another opportunity to prove that and earn the right to be in the final.
Estamos aquí por méritos propios, por lo que hemos hecho a lo largo de toda la temporada, de manera merecida, y falta jugar el segundo partido de la semifinal. Hemos ganado el primer partido, el objetivo que tenemos ahora es intentar ganar el segundo.
Hold on.
What's that?
Is Arteta saying the result should have been different at the Emirates?
Correct.
Yes.
That's what he said, yes. Go ahead.
I mean, I know a week's a long time, certainly for me, in my memory.
And for us working with you.
But I understand that.
Yes.
I only remember a very slick PSG performance and a sort of stuttering, not terrible Arsenal performance, but certainly not one.
An Arsenal side that took a long time to get going.
Yeah, certainly not one where you sit back and say, well, Arsenal should have been taking a couple of goals lead to Paris. It is a difficult game to call in a sense that you really don't know what you're going to get from Arsenal at the moment. We saw that again at the weekend, where he played his strongest team against Bournemouth, harping on about this top 5 in England, which I'm a little shocked that he did that, bearing in mind this match, the multitude of this match. It depends on Arsenal's energy. So the two things Arsenal have to do here, clearly against this PSG side, you have to defend well. If you don't, they will rip you to shreds. And two, they have to have the energy to be able to go and threaten Paris Saint-Germain, like a bit like Villa did in the last 20 minutes, albeit at home. And somehow, because Thomas Partey's back, so that's an extra bit of physicality with Rice in the midfield, which should allow Martin Odegaard to at least go and express himself a bit more, which he's not been able to do in the big games, not like the PSG midfield did at the Emirates. If they can somehow get Odegaard into the game picking passes and being able to dictate the pace of the play, maybe they have a chance. The problem is that with Fabian Ruiz, João Neves and Vitinho in there, they're very, very good. They're very, very good in midfield.
Sorry, what are you expecting from this game, Jurgen?
Well, I hope that Arsenal will go for it. I mean, you know, it's as Arteta said. I mean, it's clear you lost the first leg, and you need to go out there and win this game. So that means you got to take the game to Paris Saint-Germain, and you cannot sit back and wait and react to what Paris Saint-Germain will do. So that makes it's pretty clear. The approach needs to take initiative and take the game to them and try to create chances, you know, from the very beginning on. And that's an opportunity now for your players to really kind of step up. Now step up and prove your point. Prove that you belong to the top of the players in Europe and your top team in Europe and make it happen. So I expect Arsenal to take initiative from the first moment on.
Look, I think Vitinha, João Neves, Fabian Ruiz are excellent. But they become world class, and I mean old-timers, when you give them time and space, which Arsenal surprisingly did over the first 25 to 30 minutes at home. If you're Arsenal, you got to get tight to these players. You have to disrupt the possession of PSG through the midfield and the possession coming from the back. If you do that, because PSG likes to push Hakimi forward, likes to push Nuno Mendes forward, there are going to be opportunities for you to run into those spaces and into those channels. But you have to get close to these players so that you can disrupt the rhythm. If you don't, there is PSG. Tack, 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 tack. We're going to build. We're going to create chances. We're going to have opportunities. We're going to isolate Kvaratskhelia. We'll see what Dembele's status is. It seems like he's been training. He'll be ready to play. Look, PSG, they have a lot of options going in the attack. They have silky players through the midfield. But you got to get tight to them. Because if you get tight to them, every player can feel that a whole lot more than you just give them 3-4 yards where they can just pick out a pass. And if you do that to Vitinha and João Neves and Fabian Ruiz, then PSG is going to take you apart the whole 90 minutes.
On paper, there's actually not much between the teams. It's just Arsenal haven't been playing well this season, and PSG have gone from not playing particularly well to playing great for the last, 4 months?
Yeah.
Absolutely brilliant. If you look at the players, they've got the odd star here, maybe you think. But, you know, Arsenal are a side that really should have been equipped to be the challengers to Man City. And it was Liverpool. They should have been equipped to go in these domestic cup competitions in England. They got knocked out by the likes of Manchester United. They are better than the version of them that we have seen this year, and that would be my concern, is that they have to raise the game. If it was the Arsenal of what we saw for the bulky last year, I think it's a different game. It's much more even, but it's not. It's an Arsenal team who've sort of moaned and whined about referees, who've sort of felt sorry for themselves with some of the injuries, and they have had some bad injuries, but they're not alone. Others have to deal with that as well, and it's almost like that it's an inner-built excuse for them. And I think for all those reasons, that to raise the game back to that level, it is going to be difficult. PSG have managed to go in this trajectory, which has just been incredible. And Arsenal have flatlined, if anything, maybe even tailed off. You can see that in the Premier League performance. You can see that in the Premier League table. You saw that again against Bournemouth at the weekend. Do they have enough to flick the switch and turn up in Paris and put on a huge performance? I don't think they have.
And I don't think you're in the minority either thinking that. Take a look at the predictions. Unlike yesterday where we were split pretty much between Inter and, of course, Barcelona, everybody believes it will be a PSG Inter Milan final in Germany. Of course, on the next edition of ESPN FC, we'll be looking back at that game and, I suppose, starting to look ahead to the final. We discussed this yesterday, didn't we? Trent Alexander-Arnold made it official. He will be leaving Liverpool in the summer. Real Madrid, obviously, his expected destination. Jurgen's still with us. Craig, you weren't here yesterday. Anything you want to add about what we were talking about, Trent?
Oh, I couldn't blame the lad. I mean, honestly, fair play. Great opportunity. I understand the frustration and maybe a bit of anger from Liverpool fans. I don't understand the sort of vitriol that's coming Alexander-Arnold's way, as if he owes everybody a favour, because, look, breaks his leg playing for Liverpool and he struggles coming back and he's never the same player. It's a two-way street. They'll get rid of him. So he's got an opportunity. It's not his fault Jean-Marc Bosman took the Bosman rule into the courts in the 90s and players were allowed to go on a free. That was never the case, as Jurgen would tell you. You had a contract, and even when that contract finished, certainly in the UK, the club still held your rights. Football's changed. People see out the contracts, and that's what he's done. He owes Liverpool... I'm not saying he owes them nothing. He owes them a gratitude, but he's served them really, really well. And I think it's a great opportunity for him to go at this stage of his career and actually, you know, try something different and move out of his comfort zone. So I think it's a great decision from the lad.
Jurgen, we're expecting Xabi Alonso, of course, to be the man in charge of Trent Alexander-Arnold when the season kicks off in September in Spain. How do you think he will be best used within this Real Madrid team?
Well, he's proven his point over so many years now, and on the highest level. Obviously, if you look at his resume there, what he won already, and he's driven and he's full of energy, and he wants a new experience, then it's you can just congratulate him and tell him good luck. I mean, he will learn so many things also off the field, not only on the field, obviously from a new coach, in a new team, but also, you know, life in a different country, in a different place, one of the most beautiful cities in the world, and he will take that with. And one day he goes back then to England. He has that in his backpack and can tell some stories from his time in Madrid. So I think it's a win-win, and I think the Liverpool fans, you know, they wish him good luck, and he's done tremendously well there and proven his point. With a new manager, probably, obviously, you know what we expect there. It's going to be interesting how you fit into the new manager's plan and the way of playing there, and different approaches from different coaches is normal. So you're gonna earn a lot of experience and learn a lot from new people. So just wishing him the best.
You know, if Mo Salah had seen his contract out, as we thought was going to happen, and go to Saudi Arabia, do you think he'd have been getting, you're not welcome back here? You know, don't come back.
The homegrown rhetoric, isn't it? It's the narrative that's around it.
Yeah, I mean... And
McManaman got the same when he made the move to Real Madrid.
Stevie got the same, and I'm sure others. And look, I'm sure there's a huge element of the Liverpool fan base that are, you know, a little disappointed but understand the scenario, because this is the business that we're in. Players come and players go. You know, either your decision or the club's decision. But, you know, this is a disgrace, and he should never be allowed back at Anfield, which I've seen actually quite a lot of. It's way, way over the top for a guy who's just taken advantage of his contract running out, you know, giving great service to Liverpool, and who wouldn't want the chance to go and play for Real Madrid or in Spain for Real Madrid or Barcelona? So, yeah, again, it's choosing your target, I think, because I say if Mo Salah goes to Saudi Arabia, it's Mo, thanks very much, you've been great, come back here anytime. The local lad does it, and he's the biggest, criminal in the world, according to some of them, but, just the world we live in, isn't it?
Speaking of the world we live in, Gab and Jules podcast, of course, will drop on Thursday.
What a world that
Be
is.
sure to check that out. Welcome into the latest edition of Extra Time. We've just talked about Jurgen's son, who is starring in Serie B at the moment as a goalkeeper. If you're Alejandro and wanted to play in goal, would you try and push him in a different direction when he was younger?
Well, if he had been a good basketball player like Jurgen's son was, I said keep playing basketball.
Yeah.
Go with
Keep
basketball.
that
Yeah,
a little more lucrative, maybe. Yes. Yeah. Jurgen played basketball for Scotland under 15s. There you are. That's a fact that you need to know.
Take that.
Very proud moment.
Very proud moment. Apparently, we've got to go through these questions really quickly.
I like that.
We won't protest that. For all, I might be the prisoner of the moment, but was that one of the best two-legged ties in the Champions League in the past 20 years? Oh, no one can remember what happened yesterday, let alone...
I mean, you could just say ever, and I'd be fine with it too.
Yeah?
Yes.
You think those two semi-finals, was it Ajax Spurs, Liverpool Barcelona? Lots of drama around those, but it wasn't necessarily over the two legs. The remontada, PSG Barcelona, you think back in the day?
It's over the two legs.
Yeah.
And how both games...
How competitive they were.
How you would never think that the second leg would have been better than the first leg after it's finished 3-3, and I think they managed to do it.
Yeah, most definitely. Oh, we don't need to show the full screen. I thought we were in a rush.
I tell you what you don't like is...
That was necessary, yeah.
What you don't like is a contradictory producer.
I know.
On the one hand, he's telling you to get a move on.
Yes.
And then the other hand, he's dropping in needless graphics.
There you are. There's your graphics.
Basically supports what we already said.
Basically what I'm saying is, get that bloody thing off the till.
Jurgen, what do you make of Hansi Flick's high line?
I find it, obviously, it's encouraging. It's encouraging to kind of tell coaches basically out there that give it a go, give it a risk. Sometimes it's very risky, and he knows that. But he's kind of holding on to it. He believes in it. He thinks that, he always scores one goal more than he concedes. And I love it. Obviously, we strikers like Ali, that approach we love. So it gives us more opportunities to score goals up front as former strikers. But it's a risky undertaking, and I think it still needs to mature over time.
To that point, Craig, defensively, this Barca club was atrocious. How do they fix it?
Barca was what? Atrocious?
The defence.
I mean, I don't think they were atrocious. I mean, they've made some bad decisions. What's been surprising is that a lot of the teams in Spain have not been clever enough to figure it out. To figure out a better way of beating it, I should say. Which has been a surprise, and maybe in a sense that's why they've gotten away with it as much as they have in Spain. Also the fact they've outscored, obviously, most of the teams. But it has been quite strange watching the league every week going, why are they trying to get the striker in there? Why are they not running from deeper, and why are they not playing that ball? And in some sense, I wouldn't call it atrocious, I just call it really high risk.
Right.
Really high risk. And certainly at the end of this game, I don't think it was the smartest thing to do.
Sorry, I know I'm slowing you down.
That's okay, that's all right.
Who figured it out? Denzel Dumfries. From the very first moment, and even today, 8 minutes in, he was in behind, throwing Gerard Martin to the ground and saying, nah, dude, you're not staying up with me. I can time this well. He timed it well time and time again.
Can a goalkeeper win man of the match while still letting in 3 goals? The answer to that is yes, because Jan Sommer was the man of the match.
All right. Well, yes.
Yes, there we go. Final question. Jurgen, how do you rate Marcus Thuram?
Well, highly, because of 2 reasons. One is obviously what he produces on the field and how well he's done since he moved from the Bundesliga to Inter Milan, and how he matured and improved his own game. I mean, he really, he didn't have this dynamic drive towards goal and the clinical finishing when he played for Borussia Mönchengladbach. He came often more from the wings in Germany, but there he became a real, very, very strong center forward that connects super well with Lautaro Martinez. So I think he surprised us all in a certain way how he produced goals the last 2 years. That's point one. Point two, certainly, because emotionally, I just love the kid because I played with his father, Lilian Thuram, at AS Monaco for 2 years, so we were buddies there. And that was the time when Lilian, his dad, was not yet national team player for France. And the coach was Arsene Wenger those days. And the younger players I had then with me, I was 30 years old when I went there, were Yuri Djorkaeff, still growing, Lilian Thuram, and Emmanuel Petit. These three were in my team, and not national team players yet, you know. And obviously 5-6 years later, they win the World Cup '98 on home soil. So I think, you know, it's just a wonderful story as well for the family, the Thuram family, what happens there. And also, obviously, he has another brother that plays for Juventus. So it's quite remarkable.
What I heard there is the Jurgen Klinsmann influence on the young
mentor.
Mentorship,
I think that's it.
of course.
Good
If you
stuff.
want to win a World Cup, talk to me. It's what I heard there.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Jurgen. Inter in the final means
So
VIP trip, doesn't it? Champions League final. Wow, it's like the Oscars.
Wow!
Wow, you
cut
can't do
off
that to Jurgen.
You cut off a World Cup winner. Wow!
Goodness me. ESPN